Tell us what you think. In person, over the phone, online. Watch and hear yourself on TV. You tell us, we air it. This is the Local Live.
Hey there, Larchmont and Mamaroneck. It's Thursday, 7:30 in the evening, and it's time for the Local Live. I'm Kat Galliano. We've got the news on what's happening in your local communities, and here are some highlights of what's to come in this evening's program. Love classic cars? Well, you're in luck. The Kiwanis Classic Car Show is set for this Sunday at Harbor Island. Stay tuned because we have the Kiwanis Club members, Jack Saraceno and Jim LiVecchi, with us tonight in our live roundtable. Whales spotted in Larchmont. More on that coming up. And our LMC-TV Play of the Week is back. What's popular on the internet this week? Christian Sokole has you covered. And our Pet of the Week is in need of a forever home. Help us find this pup a loving family. What is believed to have been a humpback whale was spotted mid-sound off Larchmont this past Sunday. These photos were taken by Howie McMichael with his daughter Kathy DeVore on September 6th. According to the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation, humpback whales are one of the most commonly seen whales in New York, even though they are endangered. That being said, we hope to see our giant friend again soon. If you want to read more about this story, you can go online to theloopny.com. Let's turn it over to Mara Carlin to see what are the top stories running in the local online media.
Mark your calendar, Larchmonters. September 26th is the 125th anniversary of the Village of Larchmont, and it's hosted by the Chamber of Commerce. The Quasquicentennial celebration, and I think that is what it's called, begins with an interfaith service at St. Augustine's Church before moving on to a coffee house in the church cafeteria. Then it's Circus Minimus, a one-man circus by Kevin O'Keefe. There will be fun and activities all over the village, and the day ends with an evening cocktail party and finally dinner and dance at the Larchmont Shore Club. Tickets for the Shore Club and Circus Minimus can be purchased at larchmont125.org. For full details, visit the Larchmont Mamaroneck patch. The Hamlet Hub invites you to donate for Childhood Cancer Awareness Month. To help stop this disease, please visit the websites for St. Jude Children's Research Hospital, Children's Cancer Research Fund, Cure Search for Children's Cancer, and Locks of Love. If you frequently watch the Local Live, then you remember we spoke about the sudden roof collapse at the Larchmont restaurant Tequila Sunrise. Well, the Loop NY has released some good news that co-owner Melissa Perez expects to be open for business again next week. Melissa also expressed that anything lost in the collapse is replaceable, and she's so grateful that no one was hurt and that emergency responders and neighbors were so helpful and great that entire day. The Loop NY has the full details. Love Larchmont, a recently formed nonprofit, wants to revive the Larchmont business area. The committee is currently having a fundraiser, selling magnets at various local stores to raise money to help beautify Palmer Avenue. For more information, you can contact the group at larchmont10538@gmail.com. You can find the entire article at theloopny.com. And that's what's in the media this week. I'm Maura Carlin.
Get ready for this week's trivia question. And right after that, we go to our live interview with Kiwanis Club members Jack Saraceno and Jim LiVecchi. Stay tuned.
It's a classic car show, that is. This Sunday, September 13th, the Kiwanis Club of Mamaroneck, Harrison and Rye holds its 42nd annual car show and flea market fundraiser. I have here tonight Kiwanian Jack Saraceno and Jim LiVecchi, who's the event coordinator of Shift Masters of Westchester Car Club. along with some information on some special cars that you might get to see. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
Tell us a little, just give us a preview about the show and where it is and what happens this Sunday.
It's the 42nd annual car show that's going to be held in the harbor. It's at the corner of Boston Post Road and Mamaroneck Avenue. And it's going to be held on the baseball field. We normally have about 300 cars, and we have some vendors. We have about 20 to 25 vendors who will be selling automobile products, waxes. There's a gentleman who sells collector plates and various things that are for the collector hobby for car enthusiasts.
Okay.
Okay, and let me just explain a little bit about Kiwanis.
That would be great.
Kiwanis is, this is the single major fundraiser for our Kiwanis group here in Mamaroneck. The club donates proceeds to help children, local organizations, service groups. We give scholarships. We provide food for Thanksgiving for some families that are underprivileged. We provide gifts for their children for Christmas, and we try to bring back into the community all the money that we receive for the show.
So these things go back into the community.
It's a fundraiser, and all the money goes back into the community. It only costs $20 per car that's entered into the event, and that allows the driver of the car and one participant for the $20 to come in. And all the people that would like to come in as spectators to see the show, it's $10, but it all goes to a very, very good cause.
And what are the hours of the show?
The show will start at about 11 o'clock. The cars will get there starting about 9. The show is open to the public from about 11 o'clock, and it'll go until about 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon. We try to start giving out the trophies at 3, but normally we run a little late usually, so they're starting about 3:30 to give out the trophies.
Now, are there different categories?
We have a vast variety of cars. As I was just discussing with Jim before the show started, we started off as a very classic car show with brass cars and real antique cars, but it's evolved into such a show that has many, many different venues for cars. We have modern cars. We had a Camaro club last year that had all late model Camaros. We have cars from the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, all the way up.
Now, Jim, are you going to be judging the show?
Yeah, we'll be giving Jack a hand judging the cars in the show.
And what categories? Like, is there a separate category, let's say, for Camaros, or a separate category by decade? How is it?
When you have the Camaro Club, they're usually what we call modern muscle. They're the newer cars. People with the older Camaros, we basically fit them into a category of the older Mustangs, the older American muscle. And these are cars that are restored, or what they call resto mods, where they were the original cars brought up to date to today's standards. You have a lot of proud owners out there. You know, the cars people can come to see at the show. Everyone has a favorite car. And at this show, it's such a well-rounded show as far as the collection of automobiles. There's something for everybody to see, whether it's a fire engine or a brand new Corvette.
Well, one of the things I've always wanted to know about these old cars, because you see them driving periodically on the streets. You'll see one, and everyone will stop and turn and look. People really drive them to the show? It's hard to believe.
Yes, they do.
Are they safe?
They're not as safe as modern cars.
Exactly.
But they're big, heavy vehicles with full chassis. So they are safe in that respect, but they don't have airbags or the safety equipment that the modern cars have today.
The people who own them, are they generally the people who have restored them with their own hands?
Sometimes. You get a lot of the proud owners of some of these cars that have done the work themselves, from the barn find and have restored them, to people who have just wanted this type of car when they were teenagers and they could never afford that particular car. Now that they became successful in life, many of them, and they need a new hobby. They'll go out and they'll buy a car already restored of a very high caliber car that's been done right, which usually is less expensive to do than if you built it for yourself from the ground up.
Is that right?
Yeah, it's more profitable to the person that plans on buying a car, let's say a '67 Mustang Fastback, a bullet type car, okay? Someone might have loved that car in the movie, and they want that car. They find it. It's easier to purchase it today in great shape or restored than it would to restore it themselves.
Do people who are into this, do they usually own more than one?
Some do. I have a 1935 Chevy, a 1981 Corvette, and a 1987 Camaro. Some people do. And then some people just put their heart and soul into that one car. And especially if they restored it, you know, it could be a 4, 5, or 10-year project, and they're finished. And they'll bring it to Harbor Island, and they'll be a proud papa of that car.
And is it really, they just like people looking at it, or are people really trying to win?
Most people try to come to the show for a trophy. They want
do.
to win. Most people do. I know we disappointed you tonight. You were expecting to see a couple of classic cars. I'm embracing the fact that it's raining right now because I hope it doesn't rain on Sunday, because we will be very hurt if we're going to have this show put off until next Sunday. But the show is scheduled for this Sunday. I would like to send a shout out to the 2 gentlemen who were supposed to bring their cars. My friend Mike Tanny was going to bring his Ferrari, and Joe Pugia was going to bring his Ford. Unfortunately, because of the weather, Jimmy was going to bring his 35 Chevy as well, and you would have been able to interview
I was
us all.
so looking forward to that.
And I really am sorry. But again, as I said, it's better that it rains tonight than on Sunday.
Absolutely. Now, we were speaking about, I think, hardware or trophies. I noticed you did bring some things in.
This is the trophy for the first place prize in our car show. We'll be giving out 50 of these trophies.
And what are these for? I can't quite see it.
And these are the trophies for the trophy winners. We don't really give we don't have classes, but what we do is the 50 best cars in the show will receive these trophies. And then we're going to give a couple of trophies to certain clubs. I'd like to give a shout out to a couple of clubs that can support our show. Jimmy, who's the event coordinator for the Shift Masters, we really appreciate their help. They're going to be participating in our show. We're also going to have the Rock and Rods. They're going to have a certain section, and we're going to allow them to give a trophy to their group, as well as the Shift Masters. We want to thank the Latin Cruisers. We want to thank Moonlight Cruisers, because they're going to have a couple of shows coming up. And all these groups, we're all friends. We all participate in each other's shows. Jimmy put on 5 shows this year, and at the end of our show, I'll mention all the shows that are coming up for the rest of the couple of weeks that are coming the next Sundays.
Okay, well, we actually have a couple of questions. And I'll ask it of both of you. What's your favorite car and why?
I know what mine is.
Mine also, probably the very first car I ever owned at 13 was a Corvette.
Is that right?
I've had quite a few.
Are any of them still around?
Yeah, but other people own them.
Okay.
I put myself through Iona, buying and selling Corvettes. And it comes that I found out 30 years later that when Jimmy was 13 years old, he painted one of my Corvettes under the guise of his cousin, who I thought was going to paint it for me, had his younger cousin at 13 years old painting my car.
That's kind of crazy, and actually it raises a very interesting point that the cars kind of bring people together. And we have some pictures of some cars that I think we wanted to talk about. One of them, I think, Jack, is that Corvette of yours.
My friend owned this Corvette, and he sold it about...
We're not looking at a Corvette.
This Corvette,
this is the Corvette
that we're looking at right now was owned by my friend John from Mount Vernon. He owned that car about 40 years ago. He sold the car 40 years ago, and he was at a car show last year. As he's walking through the car show, he sees the car, and he says, boy, that looks like the car that I owned a long time ago. He picked up the hood, and he looked under the hood, and he saw a crack in the fender. And he says, this is my car. So he took his business card, and he put it on the dashboard. I subsequently met the owner of that car because they never talked to each other. And I said to him, this was my friend's old car. He says, I know. He says, he left his business card on my dashboard. And when I read the business card, it was the same name that was on the back of the registration, because he bought the car from his uncle who had never registered it. That car sat in the garage for 40 years. And after I spoke to my friend, he said, Jack, do you realize as we're getting older, these cars are going to outlive us. When we're gone, these cars are still going to be enjoyed by other people. And every car has a story, and I said, that's this car's story.
Definitely does.
Well, the story about the two of you having that connection was crazy also.
Jimmy came up to me one day, and he said, who drives a brown Corvette with Chevy hubcaps? And I said, how does someone know about this from 35 years ago? He said, I painted your car. I was flabbergasted, and we've become close friends ever since then.
Exactly. You know what? The car club scene, the automotive scene in general, has a certain camaraderie amongst people. It's a common denominator. Everyone likes to show off their vehicle. And people are very receptive to another guy's vehicle and make a big deal out of it. What the trophies are the most important thing, because we're recognizing these people bringing their love of the automotive world to a show and give them a trophy for it, so they know that it's been the recognition they're getting for their hard work. You have people that do it all season.
The most difficult thing about putting on a show like this is everybody expects to go home with a trophy.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Is that right?
Right. So 75% of the people that come to the show are going to be disappointed that they did not receive a trophy. One of the hardest things we do is judge the show, and we have to judge the cars. Jimmy's one of our judges. I now have a female judge. We have women that are involved in the sport. I'd like to mention Lisa Vastny, who's one of the best judges we have. Her father was a big car enthusiast, so she's come along and helped us. And we try to have people that are into the hobby, know the cars. Jimmy's a painter. Jimmy knows cars inside out and backwards. That's who we have judging. And it's not an exact science. We just do the best we can. And on any given day, any given car can win a trophy.
But what's the most expensive car in these shows typically? Is it based on age? Is it based on the original?
Both.
The more
value?
original, the more valuable. But the cars are like stocks. They run up and down. There are classic Corvettes now that are selling in the millions of dollars.
Any of these shows?
Not at our show, but we have cars that are in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. My friend who would bring his Ferrari, Mike Tanny, has a Ferrari that's worth at least $250,000. So you have cars that are very, very expensive here.
We have a mutual friend of ours, Dan Fraioli,
Dan
who
Fraioli
has a
number of
phenomenal
cars.
automobile collection, both original and custom. And he's, I wouldn't want to attempt. He's got well over $1 million worth of vehicles.
Oh, absolutely.
And not in quality, not in quantity, but in quality.
He's got beautiful
He's
vehicles.
got gorgeous automobiles. He bought these very rare customized cars that were done by customizers that are no longer with us. And it's a phenomenal collection. It's just, and he comes to the show every year with 2 or 3 of his cars. And people look forward to seeing him. People look forward to seeing his cars because they remember those cars from different years. A lot of people like to go and say, oh, I saw that car last year, it's here again. And they bring a friend that wasn't at last year's show. And they show, this is the car I was telling you about. Look at this car.
So interesting.
Yeah, it's really
And
a great
to talk
thing.
about value, you remember the Batman series?
Sure.
Well, the gentleman who built the Batmobile, George Barris, he built that car in a period of like 3 weeks. That car is now being sold for $4.5 million. And it's just amazing.
And which of you is buying it?
Neither one of us is going to buy it unless Jimmy lends me the money.
Thanks.
But they have so many reproductions of that car, and it's just amazing. And there's a gentleman that's going to come to one of our shows that's got the Batmobile, he's got the Monkey Mobile, and he's built tribute
he's
cars.
bringing these
And
cars.
he's going to he's going to bring these cars to the show because he built tributes to the cars that were of this
We
era.
do have another question emailed, which is, and do remember that this could be family hour. What is your most memorable experience in a car?
My most memorable experience. Well, I'm going to date myself and maybe say some trouble, but when I was young, what you see in American Graffiti was my life growing up in the Bronx. We would stay at the White Castle on Allerton Avenue, come up to Westchester and see the rich kids that were in Mamaroneck at the McDonald's there, and drag racing on the Hudson
You
River.
really did?
Oh, street racing was a big thing. It was a big thing. It was a lot of fun. And for a special event, we would go out to Brooklyn to the connecting highways and big money races, big money. The greatest race that I ever had is I raced my Corvette against a motorcycle that I never thought, my foot was trembling on the clutch as I was letting the clutch out. Thank God he blew his clutch at the line and I beat him, but that was the most memorable event that I have ever experienced, and it was for a lot of money that night.
And you, Jim?
When I was 16, I had a very fast Chevelle. I used to go to the Bronx and
A
take
what? A
and I used to,
Chevette?
Chevelle, 1965 Chevelle. I used to go to the Bronx and take their money drag racing.
Exactly. We don't,
So drag racing was really a big
Oh,
thing.
it was a big sport. As I got older, I got smarter, and I realized I should always have a police officer with me. So in the event there was a problem, that shield came out, and we got out of trouble. But a lot of police officers are into the sport of drag racing and automobiles. Jim's very good friend is a police officer in Mount Vernon who's a car fanatic.
Robbie DeLitta, he's our vice president of the Shift Masters. He's got a beautiful 1957 Chevy. It's a 4-door, but with no door handles, it looks like a 2-door. And he loads his kids up in it, does all the different shows. He'll be at Harbor Island with his 57 Chevy, and people like the car, not because I did all the graphics on it and everything, but it's just a beautiful car. And he's a fanatic with his car, and he's a car nut. He always has been. He's had a nice assortment of cars through the years.
And he's got a little miniature car for his son, and his son drives around in the little miniature car that Jim painted for
A
them.
1959 Corvette go-kart, yeah.
And it's got a beautiful paint job on it and a little gas motor that runs it around.
Are there any cars, perhaps new ones to your show, that you're expecting this year that you're really excited to see?
Somebody's got to break a new Z06.
Yeah, well,
You have
we'll
to
see.
tell me what that is.
This is a special Corvette.
Okay.
We have a friend that there's a group of gentlemen that are from Yonkers that they all have late model Corvettes, and one of the fellows who was the former inspector over in Yonkers, a building inspector, just bought a brand new Z06 Corvette, and we'll see it at the show this year because he didn't have it last year.
Surprise to you is, now you know, is Charlie and Mike got rid of their older Z06s. They just picked up Tuesday at the Corvette Museum in Bowling Green, Kentucky, their two brand new 2016 Z06s. And they will be at Harbor Island on Sunday.
And that's a special delivery that you go to where the cars are being built, and you actually give birth to the car. You're the first one to turn the key and drive it off,
It's fantastic.
off the line.
It's absolutely fantastic.
Now, if I go to this show, do I get to sit in any of these cars?
They
Drive
let you.
them, maybe?
It depends on the owner of the car. Someone like Jim, who's a gentleman, he's allowed my nephew, he's allowed other children to sit in his car. A lot of people will not even allow you to go near the car. They won't allow you to breathe on the car. It depends on the owner of the car, and everyone is different.
Okay. Well, we are actually, believe it or not, already running out of time because that's how quickly it goes. Tell us again where we go and the details so we don't
Okay.
miss it.
This Sunday at the Harbor in Mamaroneck, the car show will start at about 10 o'clock till 5 o'clock. I'd like to give a shout out to a number of other car shows that
Go
are
right
coming
ahead.
up. We have a car show this Saturday in Pound Ridge. Auto King Bob Sandowski is going to put that show on. On the 20th of September, we have a big car show at Orchard Beach. Both Jimmy and I are going to be judges at that show. That's going to have 2,000 cars and 1,000 motorcycles. It's a tremendous show.
Wow,
10,000 people come to that show. On October 4th, there are two shows. There's one in State Line at Westchester Burgers, and there's one with Moonlight Cruises at Empire City in Yonkers. On October 11th, Rockin' Rods is having a car show at JFK Marina, and October 18th, Moonlight Cruises at Ursuline High School.
Okay.
Just want to give a shout out to my wife and thanking her for allowing me to spend all this time with all these car shows. She's an angel. Thank you, Dorothy.
So that's this Sunday, September 13th, at Harbor Island Park in Mamaroneck, 10 to 5?
10 to 5.
Okay. I also, before we forget, I need to give a shout out to Robert and Evelyn Wells, who I understand are tuning in tonight from Scarsdale. Thank you, Jack Saraceno and Jim LiVecchi, for joining us. I look forward to seeing you at the car show.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you very much.
Stay tuned, and we will have the answer to the trivia question as well as more community stories.
This week in sports, the Mamaroneck football team kicked off their season with a tough loss to Mayapack. The Tigers did, however, start off the season with a bang in the LMC Varsity Sports Play of the Week.
With number 32. Onside kick and recovered. And the Tigers recover the ball to start the season.
They did an onside kick. Surprise a team last season. Does Coach Vinny do that again?
You know, Charlie, I was curious when you realized that Doug Alvarez, their place kicker, was not in the game to kick off. I wonder if Mayapack didn't pick up on that as well.
I don't think they did. I'm pretty sure Matt recovered it too. Matt kicked it and it went 10 yards and then he recovered it easily.
Now let's see what's poppin' online. Without further ado, here is the grid.
What's up, people? Welcome to The Grid, where we take a look at popular stories from the internet. I'm your host, Christian Sokole. The new iPhone was revealed this past Wednesday with awesome new features. At the time of this recording, though, the new iPhone is not revealed just yet, so we'll be adding the actual features in post. Look at that phone! Like, check out this thing it does! and nobody expected this new feature, but what really blew my mind was this. So as you can all see, the new iPhone is amazing. Or terrible. You'll know before I do, you time traveler. If you've been following world news lately, the European migration crisis is quite the headline. So what does this have to do with the United States, you ask? Well, many countries around the world have not been accepting Syrian refugees, despite the fact that international law, agreed upon by most of the world really, gives them the right to remain in other countries while their own is dangerous. Well, Google put together this awesome site which shows breakdowns of search interest and acceptance of refugees or migrants by country. So if you want to add some sweet knowledge to back up your political position, check it out. It's free after all. And finally, our video showcase. This enables us to end on a happy note, and this week it's pure cuteness. Kids trying dark chocolate for the first time in their life. Here's a clip. First lemons, now dark chocolate, eventually kids will just look like this all day. Guys, that was the grid for this week. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. I'm your host, Christian Sokole, and let's head back to the local live.
I watch the local live so that I can ask questions about my community.
Caller, go ahead.
I watch so I can find out what's going on the go.
Because I catch up at any time, from anywhere, and see any show. Shh!
You tell us, we air it. This is the local live.
Who doesn't love a lap dog? Our pet of the week is Vader the Yorkie. Vader is 4 months old and weighs just 5 pounds. To make this sweet little guy a part of your family, put in your adoption application right away. For more information, you can go to www.ny-petrescue.org. And thanks for tuning in to the Local Live. As always, it's been my pleasure to keep you updated with our community news. Be sure to check out our website for more news and community programming at www.lmc-tv.org. And for internships and volunteer opportunities, send your emails to thelocallive@lmc-tv.org. We love hearing from you. Well, that's the news for us this week. I'm Kat Galliano. See you next week.
Tell us what you think. In person, over the phone, online. Watch and hear yourself on TV. You tell us, we air it. This is the Local Live.